Hey y'all, it's Gabe the nutritionist here, and I want to talk about selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, right? They're known as SSRIs. Again, in the series where we talk about mental health, right, and trying to improve it, a lot of people often go get some help, and they go to the doctors, they're sad, they're depressed, they've done what they can, right, and nothing seems to be working, and we believe sometimes the solution comes in the form of a pill. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I've spoken to many friends, many clients, people that have, taken SSRIs, which is, when you take any drug, it's going to have a sort of mixed reaction to people who've taken it, right? Some people take it, they're okay, good for them. For other people, they take it and they feel like it's worsened their life. So this is going to be me talking about what SSRIs are and why there's a certain piece of the puzzle that's missing. And this one puzzle, I often tell people they ignore it, they don't think about it, they go to their doctors and they don't even talk about it. And we're going to talk about this potential solution, right? To help fuel your brain, give it the energy, and make the neurotransmitters you need to live your life like everyone else. Okay, so first of all, you have something called serotonin. As we know, this helps you kind of feel evened out and balanced. There's this idea that people have a chemical deficiency, there's a problem, and because the chemicals in your brain are unbalanced, you get all out of whack, right? That's a yes or no kind of thing, but you got to go more into depth about it. But when you do take this, right, it keeps serotonin in your brain longer, so you increase levels in your brain, and more or less you should feel different in different ways, of course. So the thing is, you could change for better or for worse, right? Like many drugs, there are side effects, and some people do better on them, some people do worse on them. It really, depends on you, right? And how you're doing with your life. And I tell people, right, you got to fix your diet. The reason I tell people to fix their diet is because you gotta give your body the love, the nourishment. You gotta feed it the nutrients it needs to survive and to thrive and to live well. How are you expected to, make your own serotonin, right? If you're eating like garbage? How are you supposed to make more dopamine if you're not giving your body the fuel it needs to make its own dopamine, its own serotonin, right? Maybe you're a cold person, right? And you're lacking oxytocin, right? Not because you're not getting any love, people hug you, they kiss you, you feel emotional bonding, you feel connections with people. If you don't feel that or that doesn't get triggered in your body, it could be your diet. Of course, in my opinion, I'm a nutritionist. I link everything to some kind of nutrient deficiency and something being affected along the way. So we're going to talk a little more about this because, like I say, right, diet plays a big role in everything in life. And the one thing I tell everybody, right, when it comes to SRIs is never ever quit cold turkey. The reason I say this is some people, they take it for a few months, a year or two, for a period of time, right? And their body gets adjusted to this thing. And we still don't know all the mechanisms and all the impact that SSRIs have on the body, right? There's still mechanisms unclear as to what it does for the most part, unfortunately. But what we have figured out is when people quit cold turkey to stop taking the drug, you know, they just they go out of whack, they go kind of crazy, they do shit that's not normal, and this impacts family, this impacts your spouse, this impacts your children, right? Because it's like, hey, mom or dad ain't acting right, or your brother or sister's not acting right, I mean, you've known, your friends and family, and then when they act different, more or less they're not, who they are. So sometimes when people quit cold turkey, this could be one of the reactions to that. So I tell people if this is what you want, right, and you're planning to get off of SSRIs, find a very experienced doctor to help wean you off of that. You can't just quit cold turkey. They put you on a protocol, and little by little they decrease the dosage, and eventually at some point, you stop taking it. And hopefully by the time we stop taking it, right, you're having a better diet, right? You're eating more meat, right? Eating more beef, more lamb, eating more bison, you know, you're getting your body the fuel it needs, right? Amino acids, very important. So how does SSRIs work? Well, it blocks the reuptake of serotonin in the synaptic cleft between neurons. So what does it mean? When your body should be getting rid of serotonin, we're keeping in more. We're stopping it from leaving. So over time, more or less, you will build up more serotonin, and that should, change your mood, right? It may enhance it and reduce anxiety, or maybe it won't, which depends, right? Everyone's different. So, these are the names for the common SSRIs. You have fluoxetine, which is Prozac. Very interesting. Might go too deep into relations with that, but yeah. Sertraline and Zoloft, escitalopram, Lexapro, paroxetine, Paxil, and citalopram with Celexa. So if you're any on these drugs, that's what they are. They're SSRIs. So this is a really interesting one, right? I think there was a paper that came out maybe 3 years already now, maybe 2 years. But it looked at all associations and causations, and there were a lot of studies. And what they found out, right, is the serotonin theory of depression works in theory. Some people were alleging that the original work was based on a fabricated fraud. I'm not into the academic circle, so I don't know if that's true or not, right? More or less. But, sometimes these things do happen. The point being, right, what they found out is when you go through all the studies, you look at all the people, you look at all the serotonin levels, right? For people that were not depressed, right? They had medium, they had high, they had low, weren't depressed. For other people, right, that were depressed, they had low, medium, high serotonin, right? So it could improve that having low serotonin causes depression. Because when you look at the studies, people they're everywhere, right? High, low, medium, some are depressed, some are not depressed. So there is no actual link to having more or less is better or not. So I found that pretty interesting. Because again, right, like the body works as a system. People say holistic. I use a systems-based approach in my thinking. You know, you have your nervous system and it connects to your enteric system and it connects to the food you eat. And it depends on your mitochondria and your brain energy. If you're getting more energy, whether it's ketones, whether it's glucose, whether your glucose transporters are working, just there's a lot of factors at play, right? Maybe the B1 deficiency, maybe magnesium deficiency. There's so much that could be happening at the same time, right? Which is why they're coming to the idea, right, that serotonin isn't the end all be all, which is what I find interesting, right? So whether people want to call it debunked or not, I mean, that's up to personal opinion and for science to further figure out more links to mental health. As I talked about in other stuff, right? You know, there's the effect of heavy metals, right? It could be mold that does play a big impact. It could be Lyme, that's also another big impact. So, it's not just serotonin, right? That's why some people are given serotonin, SSRIs, and they don't feel any better, right? Some people, fortunately, they do for whatever mechanism that we haven't figured out yet, not directly tied to serotonin. But yeah, this is just to expand our thought and figure out what we can do to better help people. And like any drug, right? Any drug, it's always going to lead to some sort of depletion in nutrients, right? So when it comes to SSRIs specifically, them is shown to deplete CoQ10, right? You need it for brain energy, you need it from your muscles. It gives you energy for your mitochondria. And you get a lot of this from eating beef, right? And also, if you're taking statins, by the way, you're also severely depleted by CoQ10 because, again, you need cholesterol and the mevalonate pathway is blocked, and you're not getting more cholesterol to make the CoQ10 you need, coenzyme Q10. So I should also put here, right? People should eat more fatty acids, right? Again, saturated fats, healthy fats, no seed oils. You want to do something like coconut oil, extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil. You want to do some tallow, something that's going to help improve you so you can make your own hormones, healthy hormones. You don't want to make hormones with unstable bonds from PUFAs, polyunsaturated fatty acids, because these bonds will oxidize and cause inflammation in the body. Then you get B vitamins, right? Of course, you need B6, which is a cofactor for many things. You need B9, which is folate, which I would say if you have some kind of DNA damage or some kind of nervous damage or some kind of damage, right? in all of this. It could help your body repair it with excision-based repair. B12, of course, you need it. Helps you with your energy, your blood, your flow, all that stuff. And again, right, it helps you with your methylation, right? Because you got to methylate your stuff, right? So again, when it comes to a folate, take a methylfolate. It helps you a lot. Um, Also, a folinic acid, which is a calcium folinate. They give it to people that have cancer because it works pretty well. Again, people argue about folic acid. Again, you need about 800 micrograms. At about 400 micrograms, your body will bottleneck because you got to metabolize that and convert it and methylate it. So again, right, you got to have a really healthy diet, right? But like I say, if you got nothing, then yeah, folic acid would be, useful. Better to have some than none, of course, right? Logically. And magnesium, for some reason, everything depletes magnesium, right? There used to be a lot of magnesium in the soil. You eat the plants, you eat your beef, you eat whatever, right? And you would have a sufficient amount of magnesium. But again, there's a lot to be argued about current contemporary farming practices and how they deplete the soil. And it's a whole other discussion for another day, right? But point being, right, you want to get like a magnesium chloride lotion, rub it on your body. It absorbs the best. When you look at blood tests, and you look at hair tissue mineral analysis, your magnesium does go up. Compared to pills, which there's always some kind of gimmick or gag with pills where you need to take all these magnesiums and then you magically absorb it, or you gotta do magnesium L-threonate because it bypasses the blood-brain barrier. It's like just rub magnesium chloride. It does all that, and it's less expensive. It's pretty affordable, and you feel better and you notice it right away. Sodium, you could have low sodium again, so make sure to salt your food. And when consulting food, do like a Celtic sea salt, do a Jacobson kind of sea salt, right? Because Himalayan pink salt is rusty. There's all sorts of trace minerals that could contain toxic heavy metals, and people don't really, people want to sell it, right? Because it's a gimmick. But there are people that have stopped doing Himalayan pink salts, that kind of stuff, and they feel way better, right? So if you're the kind of person like you're doing like a Redmond's, that's like a really popular brand. It's a pink salt. People take it and they feel like shit. They stop and they feel better. So again, right, you got to listen to your body. Sometimes people will say something's awesome, but for whatever reason, you don't feel it right. So listen to your body. So I think this is a really big one, right? Especially for men, right? But again, right, people feel emotionally numb when they take it, right? They lose their libido, they get sexual anhedonia, which it sucks, right? Like you just sexually feel nothing, right? You can't get turned on, you can't get aroused. And it's difficult when you have a partner, right? You love your boyfriend, girlfriend, your husband or wife, and you want to connect, you want to bond, you might make that oxytocin and ejaculate and get that dopamine hit or orgasm, but you can't. I don't know the specific mechanism as to why, but yeah, it's a side effect that SSRIs do cause, and it's even more sad. It's even more depressing. But like I say, right, when you have the anhedonia, right, it's not just sexual. It's just for some people in general, we just feel nothing, right, like a zombie. You can see something sad, you can see something happy, and you won't really feel anything or react towards it. So that's one of the biggest reasons why people that take SSRIs, right, they want to get off of them, right? But like I say, don't quit cold turkey, You're on them for better or for worse. Find a trained doctor that specializes in getting people off of it, wean you off of it. And as you do this, get a healthy diet, right? Like I say, eat more beef, eat more saturated fats. You want healthy fats for healthy cholesterol. You want to eat complete proteins in the form of animal protein to give you all the amino acids you need, all the little building blocks to build your neurotransmitters, right? Especially dopamine, especially serotonin, especially cortisol, which cortisol is good for you, right? It has its responses and it's needed. But if you have unnecessary cortisol from, like actual stress in life, then that's a different story, right? But yeah, you need to build your own neurotransmitters. Because again, right, I tell people, unless you have like a very special, specific problem, the human body doesn't have a drug deficiency, right? We weren't born to be raised on SSRIs, right? It was just a band-aid solution that was seen as a panacea, which some people they do good. Okay, that's fine. No problem, right? But for some people, they're suffering. They're not doing better, right? So again, right, emotionally numb, anhedonia, and you just don't feel pleasure anymore. Life doesn't feel great anymore. This medication is supposed to make you feel a little better, right? A little peppier, a little happier. But for these people that take this, some of them may suffer this. It's not good, right? Sexual anhedonia, men, we thrive on this. But once you get sexual anhedonia, I mean, is life even worth living anymore? That's like the one good thing we have, right? Tongue in cheek. But again, right, this can cause inflammation, affecting the gut-brain axis, cytokines affecting your immune system. It could cause blood sugar dysregulation, so you might possibly see an increase in your blood sugar or your A1C. Again, we're talking about nutrient deficiencies. So again, right, you're gonna have a depletion in B6, B12, magnesium, depletion in zinc because you got to run cytochrome P450, run phase one, phase two detox to eliminate drug, of course. Omega 3s, omega 3s are always being depleted. So again, eat a little bit of fishy, fresh fish. I don't recommend fish oil because it's usually rancid and oxidized. And again, you don't want the bonds to be too unstable when you eat it. That causes some inflammation in the body. So again, just go out and enjoy some fishy. Sardines are pretty good. Uh, so again, right? Some people have that gene, right? Well, it's not just the one gene. There's like between 15 to 20 different genes that affect your methylation, right? Whether it's SNP or BRCA or whatever, right? So if you have a genetic deficiency, again, take a methylated form of your B vitamins, especially for your folate, especially for, so your body can actually use it. And we have poor sleep, trauma, loneliness, stress overload. Not awesome, right? Side effects suck. And like I say, right, SSRIs don't fix the problems, but they mask the nutritional imbalance you had in the first place. So it's kind of like when teenagers get acne, right? You can rub all the cream you want on your face, right? It doesn't solve the problem. Stop eating junk food. Stop eating seed oils. Maybe you're eating too much sugar. Maybe you're not a very clean person, right? So take more showers and, clean your room and change your sheets and, give your body what it needs, right? Zinc, selenium, molybdenum, so your body can detox the crap you're eating, right? Especially if you're a teenager, right? That's my reference to acne. If you did that, you wouldn't have that problem, right? You'd have it to a minor degree. But my point being, right, is you got to feed your body what it needs, right? Feed it healthy proteins, feed it healthy fats. If you eat carbs, right, do some healthy fruits, do some healthy veggies. Again, right, do the least toxic. So I'm going to say this video for another day, right? Because again, I'm going to do, monoamine amine inhibitors. I was going to make this a one big video, but I'm going to just break it down into smaller videos. So be on the lookout for my other video. So it's not just that, but we're going to talk about how weed is fucking garbage. And we're going to talk about other drugs and how that impacts you, right? Because something I didn't really talk about right now, right? And yeah, right here. Is again, right? When you take drugs, right? Any kind of drug, whether it's pharmaceutical and or you're taking illicit drugs and sometimes supplements, right? Especially grapefruit. Um, they can affect the way, your drugs work, SSRIs, oxidase inhibitors. So look out for contraindications, right? So if you're doing drugs or doing steroids or you're doing something right, always tell your doctor because sometimes drugs can have unintended consequences that could be bad or they could be pretty bad, right? So, always disclose to your doctor what herbs you're taking, what supplements you're taking. Tell them about your lifestyle and what you're doing. Because sometimes there's a contraindication in which the drugs react in a bad way and that affects you in a negative way. But again, right, find a functional medicine doctor, find a doctor that's knowledgeable in this area so they can help you get out of this to have a better, healthier quality of life. But as for getting out of this, make the changes you need to prosper, to thrive, to live in this world, right? I tell people, right? There was a time where you weren't always depressed, sad, anxious, impending doom, whatever it is, right? Again, right? Like I say, cut out junk food, cut out fast food, and focus your body on healing it with nourishing foods, right? Eat beef. Beef is very healthy for you. It's got a lot of vitamins, it's got a lot of minerals, it's extra saturated fats. It doesn't have to be grass-fed and it's going to be Wagyu. It's going to be anything fancy, right? It could just be regular conventional beef. People say how beef is bad because it's got hormones, but we actually look at the processing and the end of the cow's life. There's still like 1,000 times more estrogen and soy. So again, people make that argument. It's a dumb argument. It has no validity to it because by the end of the cow's life cycle, there is no estrogen to impact you. So people say hormones, but they don't know what they're talking about, right? That problem's already fixed. So even if it's just conventional beef, right? Select, choice, whatever, right? It's still the best thing you could do for your body, right? Because I know not anybody is fortunate enough to afford, good high quality pasture raised, you know, grass-fed and finished beef, lamb, bison, right? So again, right, do your best, right? So get some meat, right? Because you need complete proteins, which is all the essential amino acids that you need that your body can't make on its own. And that's how it's going to help you make your neurotransmitters. And then for your regular hormones, right? You want to get, you know, beef, butter, tallow. I'm a big fan of saturated fats because it helps you with your steroid hormones, right? So if you're a guy, you're low T, increase your T, right? If you're a woman struggling with your progesterone and your estrogen, again, saturated fats, it'll help you with that. So your fats, right? Do tallow, do butter, do extra virgin olive oil, that kind of stuff. It'll help you with your hormones. Because a lot of people have trouble with their hormones because, they're low fat. And then when they're low fat, they eat a bunch of PUFAs, seed oils. So, do research on that too. Come to your own conclusion on that, right? As I tell people, right? Don't ever believe in my words. Do your own research, you know, look at everyone else, get first, second, third opinions, because everyone has a different way of saying things and different perspectives and views on things, right? I never regard myself as being the person that knows it all, right? But I'm just here raising and spreading awareness to an issue that has a potential solution, which is, you know, a nutrient deficiency. So feed, love, nourish your body, right? You gotta do that. Working out is great. It helps you. Make sure to do that. Takes your mind off of things. Go for a walk, Take time to de-stress in your life, right? A lot of people don't have, good sources of magnesium, right? So again, get magnesium chloride, rub it on your body, absorb it. You'll feel pretty good, chill, relaxed, calm in a good way, right? If you have anxiety, like I say, right, take vitamin B1. You're probably very deficient in B1. Only time people talk about B1 is when you get that Wernicke syndrome. But the problem I see is there's also going to be subclinical deficiencies, right? Because a lot of people, they don't have severe deficiencies, right? Most of the time, right? They have a very slight gradual deficiency where it's not at a point where your body's feeling optimal. So yeah, um, if you can, right, please like, subscribe, and share, right? Share this video with people because people need to know how they can improve their mental health. We're living in a time in this world where we're very divided. Uh, you know, there's some missiles being dropped in Iran, and it's like, people could feel bad about there possibly being World War III, right? But regardless, we've got to, live our life, do our best, because life could be short or it could be long, depending, right? I mean, we can't control that, but we got to do what we can to, you know, be happy and enjoy your friends and family and the people around you. Because again, life is short, but it could be long, but we deserve to be happy and hit the point where life can feel fulfilling and we feel good. Okay. Thank you all. God bless y'all. And I'm gonna make the next video. And yeah, see you next time. Goodbye.